In the summer of 2024, I worked as a ride operator at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This was one of the most memorable experiences of my life in many good ways, and there were some cons to it. Today I'll be explaining my experience of being a ride operator at Cedar Point. So during the summer, as I said in the intro, I was a ride operator at Cedar Point in 2024. The ride I worked at was Raptor, the park's B&M inverted coaster that opened in 1994. I worked at a B&M last year, as you all know, because I worked at Six Flags Great Adventure as a ride operator for Nitro last year. So being back at a B&M was really cool, and I knew it pretty well how to work at B&M. However, the control system was a bit different on Raptor, and I was unfortunately never able to be trained at controls. However, I was able to still be an attendant for every other part of the ride, such as checking restraints, pressing the buttons, like the dispatch button in the back of the station. So I did basically everything except the control panel. Throughout the season, I also tried to get trained at many other rides, but unfortunately was never able to. Now I live 8 hours away from Cedar Point. Thankfully, they have employee housing for employees that are farther away from the park. And there are as many people at this park that most certainly do not work around here. I met people from other continents and countries. For instance, I knew some people from Europe, Ecuador, Japan, Thailand. So yeah, there's a lot of people that work far away. So the employee housing is very useful for people who will want to work here. The employee housing is not free and costs $10 per day, and it comes directly out of your paycheck. Speaking of paychecks, you will get paid every 2 weeks. Now I want to get into the first and basically only major con I had with working here, and that involves the employee housing. Now these rooms have 2 bunk beds. So what was the big con with these rooms is that the quality of them was pretty disgusting, honestly. Some of the air conditioners had mold inside of them, and the rooms were just very unsanitary. That is really the only major con I actually had with working here. There was one other con that's not that big. I'll list it later. But yeah, that's easily the biggest con that I had working here. Now, you're wondering, as an employee, if you work here, where you could eat during your lunch breaks. And I'll list them. There's the Best Day Bistro and the Stockade Cafe, which are the 2 employee cafeterias. The cafe I went to the most was the Best Day Bistro, since I was very close to Raptor, while Stockade is close to Maverick and Steel Vengeance. The Best Day Bistro would usually have 1 entree per day, and then a bunch of other typical foods, such as chicken tenders, fries, sandwiches, burgers, stuff like that. Now, one thing I will say is the options for the regular type food changed a lot, because they would run out of stock quickly, and sometimes, this was another kind I had, if they ran out of a bunch of options, sometimes you could look for a meal, and it just would not be what you were really looking for. Some days I would just pack my own lunch, because the food there was not also very cheap. It wasn't expensive, but it wasn't cheap either. They did have free fountain drinks for employees, which was very nice. But I suggest mostly bringing your own lunch if they don't have the options you would like. Alright, now let's talk about working at the park again. Working at Cedar Point for me was just such a magical experience for me. Cedar Point, as most people know, is my favorite park I've ever been to, and many others as well. It is like just the roller coaster capital of the world, and it felt insane being there all summer. And basically having Cedar Point in your backyard on your days off, where you could just ride coasters basically all the time, and including if some of your favorite coasters are there, such as Maverick and Steel Vengeance for me, which are some of my favorite coasters I've ever ridden. That was just awesome, being able to ride those all the time, basically. Now let's get back to other pros of working there. If you work with a very good crew, you will have a very, very good time. I worked with a great crew at Raptor and made so many great friends that I got along with so well. Now, when I started working at Cedar Point, I started working at the very end of April and ended yesterday. Actually, yesterday was my last day. And basically, I know this is going to be a question in the comments mostly. because I started at the beginning of April, meaning I had time to do this, was I able to ride Top Thrill 2 before it closed? And the answer is yes, I did ride Top Thrill 2. You saw some videos I took of it actually in the park footage video and some clips I have in this video. But yes, I was able to ride Top Thrill 2 once. I will be doing a full review on Top Thrill 2 very soon, so stay tuned for that. So another thing I want to mention is if you are a returning employee to Cedar Point, let's say you've already worked there for 1 year, you will be able to have to pick your ride. You will have 3 options. You will have an option between 2 coasters that you could pick, and you will also have to have an option for 1 flat ride. Now, since I will be back here next year, I already have the 3 options. I know the 2 coasters I will be picking on in the park will be Maverick and Magnum, and the flat ride I will choose will be Skyhawk. They will pick the ride for you. I'm hoping to get Maverick out of those 3. So yeah, that is another thing I found out recently this year that I wanted to mention. Something else they do for employees that work here is ride nights, or as they call them, fun nights. These nights they will have certain rides open in certain areas. My favorite event they did was for Steel Vengeance and Maverick, which they referred to as Big Bash, which was sort of like a preview for their Halloween event. They had 2 coasters open, which were Steel Vengeance and Maverick, as I just said, and getting night rides on those at basically 12 and 1 in the morning was insane. Now, I also want to answer this question, and this is a pretty simple answer. Did I like working here more than working at Six Flags Great Adventure? And the obvious answer is yes. Working at Cedar Point all summer, being able to be there all summer, on your time off, also being able to ride some of the best coasters that I've ridden was just insane. And plus, the crew I worked with this year at Raptor was better than the crew I worked at Nitro last year. The Raptor crew this year was just way more energetic and way more fun to work with. If you are considering working at Cedar Point, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is an amazing place to work at, and I had an amazing time working there. I met some great people throughout my time working there. Plus, you are working at the best park in the world all summer, which is also amazing. And for anybody wondering, yes, I absolutely, most definitely will be working here again next year. So yeah, that is my experience of working at Cedar Point during the 2024 season. I cannot wait to return back there next year. And it's just an amazing summer here working at Cedar Point. It is just amazing, and I could not recommend it more. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.